Welcome to the VandySports podcast. I am your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today will be Tim Corbin, who is Vanderbilt's baseball coach. This episode is presented by Wellspire, Nashville's Learning and Development Center. Wellspire offers personal and professional development opportunities in a beautiful facility in the Gulch neighborhood. Stop by for an event with world-renowned speakers or host an off-site event that will wow your team or your clients. We thank our co-title sponsor, the Well Coffee House, which turns coffee into water and has a mission to bring clean water to the world. The news is sponsored by Sutherland & Belk, a Nashville-based injury law firm. Sutherland & Belk is committed to fighting for those who've been injured in car, motorcycle, and truck accidents. Check them out at sbinjurylaw.com. Well, the news not good for Vanderbilt football. The Commodores lose a commitment from defensive tackle Jordan Butler, who had been committed for several months. He is now committed to Northwestern. Tim Corbin appears on the guest line, which is presented by our friends at Boll & Branch. It was started by Vanderbilt graduates Scott and Missy Tannen. I've slept on those sheets for years, and they're amazing. Had no clue how comfortable they were until I got them. They are fair trade certified, which means they're made under safe conditions by men and women treated and paid fairly. Try them for a month. You can return them for free, but you won't want to. Once you get the sheets, try the mattress. That was voted the best mattress of 2018. Go to bollandbranch.com. That is spelled B-O-L-L. Enter the promo code Vandy and get $50 off your first set of sheets. Tim Corbin joins us now in the car en route to somewhere. We appreciate his time today. Tim, hope you've had a great offseason. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Let's talk about your offseason. You're, 4 months and change removed for a national title. Now that it is sunk in, just reflect on the season you guys just had.
Oh, yeah, we have really. Glad you asked me a question because we really haven't had a whole lot of time to reflect on it. And it's one of those seasons that you should take time to do so. But the way our schedule is, probably a lot like a lot of other sports, football, with bowl season and recruiting mixed into one, that's kind of our situation as well. But we won our very last game, and that kind of completed the circle for that group of kids. But as I said all along, we didn't need to win a national title to understand how special a group of kids that was. It was great that they could, but that's so difficult to do, and it's so unrealistic sometimes to think that you're going to do. But I think when you look in retrospect of the group of kids, they sent a lot of staff members and coaches home every night that could concentrate on their families and not look back and worry about what was going on behind them. And I think that's the greatest compliment you could give them. They were very consistent in their actions and their follow-through and what they did. So it was just special to be a part of them. And that senior class, certainly see them finish their season the way they did, is special to watch that.
Well, obviously you cannot separate the emotional connection and the experience that you had with these kids, but if you can try to step outside of it for just a minute, it's super rare for teams to do what you guys did, not just win the SEC, which was the toughest league in the country. You won the tournament and went unbeaten, and then you won the whole thing. I would have to think that makes your team last year one of the most special teams in the history of college baseball, given the entire body of your work.
Well, now that you've seen it as long as I have, and longer, I mean, in the 18 years that I've been here, you've seen teams that can get through the season and be very good during the regular season, but there's very few teams who can go into a tournament situation, and although they know they have a 1 seed tied up, go into it and play at the level that we did, and play at the level that we did on the very last day when we were behind the 8 ball as well, and playing from behind. And to finish off the season in that way, and then get into a regional situation and sweep that, and then get into a super regional, and to be able to come back from a deficit after really being clobbered the first night, but asking a young kid to take the ball and put us back on top again, which he did, and then win on the very last day, and then essentially do similar things during the course of the College World Series too. Go through there and play some very tough teams, notably Mississippi State after playing them in the tournament, and then having to beat a very good Louisville team twice, and then obviously coming back much like Duke and beating Michigan in the same scenario with Rocker and Hickman. So I think when you look back at everything, there was a bounce back ability of the kids that was certainly there. That was very reflective of their mental toughness and their character traits and just their consistency of play. I mean, you just look at what they did, and there's not very many games where you thought, these guys just didn't have it today. I mean, in baseball that happens quite frequently, but that wasn't the case for this group. And I think you can point to the midweeks as a big example of that, Chris, in terms of how we operated in the midweeks. And I thought the biggest piece of this, and I'm talking too much, but the biggest piece of that was getting a four-man rotation. And once we got a four-man rotation in place, I thought we're pretty good.
Well, you're not talking too much, and there's a ton to talk about. And I want to start with this question. You knew the potential of that team before the season. I know that you're guarded in your words, but I saw your team. You saw your team. You know your team. You knew that could be special. So with that, you go into the season, you play a tough schedule, not just in the league, but some tough out-of-conference opponents. And with that comes some doubts. You had the series at Georgia and A&M for two that I can think of. But let me ask you two questions, and you can answer these in the order that you like, Tim. When was the moment, if you had one, that you maybe most doubted that this would all come together? And to converse, was there a moment that you're like, okay, not that you had this, but maybe you felt most sure about this team ending up where it ended up at the end of the year, if that all makes sense?
Yeah, I think bouncing back from Texas A&M, bouncing back from Georgia, going to Alabama and sweeping on the road there, and then going to Kentucky and sweeping on the road there at the end of the year. That first game against Kentucky, where the game got called late, we were losing. We had been winning that game. We lost the lead, and they took the lead. And then when Phil Clark hit that ball into the gap and scored the tying runs, and then we used the slash play with Harry Ray to go ahead and then win the next day, and then the win after that. I just felt like this is a pretty tough team. This is a team that can go on the road. I was anxious to see how we bounce back from Texas A&M, and you mentioned the two losses, series losses to Texas A&M and Georgia, which were the only ones. Those were pitcher-heavy teams, and we were playing on the road, and those are difficult to grab. So I just felt like our response to both of those series was good. But I think early in the season when we swept Florida, I thought we were going to have a chance to be pretty good. But then as we continually won the midweeks, and I think anytime you have a team, Chris, it's very responsive and very good at what they do with low celebratory moments during the season. They just win and move forward. I think that's when you know you have a mature team.
Let's go back to when you first got to Vanderbilt. If I'm telling you that you've accomplished all that you've done, the SEC titles, the two national titles, the number one picks, and then you're sitting on the precipice of potentially more of those types of things the coming years ahead, do you believe me if I tell you all that you're going to accomplish?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't. Looking back at where we started, and I don't think so. I mean, it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort. to build something takes a tremendous amount of effort. To sustain it takes more effort than that. And I think that's the part that, when you think about a program, I think the consistency of it is what we can all be so proud of. It's just that year in, year out, even though we may not win a regional or win a super regional, and of course get to the College World Series. I mean, we've been to the College World Series a few times, but to be able to get to the championship game 3 out of 4 times, I mean, our College World Series record in Omaha has been very good, but I just think it points to the consistency of what we've done over time, and I'm not so sure there's another team that's been able to do that. There's teams that have won maybe more at certain times, but over those 18 years, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find another program. And for that, no, I don't think I would have believed it. But I don't. When you're starting out, you don't look too far ahead about what's possible. Just look at what you're doing right there, and that's what we've been able to do.
I think your comment about sustaining is interesting, and I think it's dead on. With that, I want to ask you, it would be awfully tempting to just bag what you've done and walk away. It's incredible amount of work. The highs and lows put a lot of strain on you. Have you ever thought about just saying, "Hey, calling it a career"? And if not, what is it that just keeps you going through this?
Well, I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. I mean, you mentioned the highs and lows. You've been part of them, and you've seen me grow too as a coach and get older. And but my passion for what we're doing is still the same. I don't feel any less than when I did when I started. Now, you reinvent yourself through the years, and you try to better yourself so that you can better the program. But in terms of, there's nothing else I would want to do. I like the teaching aspect of it. I like the lifestyle that we have. I certainly have a partner who enjoys it as much as I do and enjoys the kids, and I think that's what keeps you going. It's the innocence of the players. It's sad when it's over for them, but what ends up happening is the new group refreshes you, and that keeps it always fresh. And I just like the consistency of it and the pliability of the kids and how you can work with them and how they give you the opportunity to work with them. And, if I don't know if I would enjoy that. I like the age group of 18, 19, and 20 and 21 because you can affect their thinking in a positive way. So that's the force that keeps you coming, and it's their energy that allows you to build yours. And we're just lucky to do it inside of a great university and certainly a great city too. I mean, we've got a lot of things that are positive here and a lot of growth in the 18 years that we've been here.
Well, I've known you well, and you tell me if this sums it up. I think you are the most competitive and driven person I've ever met, but I sense that you enjoy the relationships and the teaching and the mentoring aspect of it more than you even enjoy the success. Or maybe enjoy isn't the word, but you get more satisfaction in it. I don't know if it makes sense the way I phrased it, but having watched you from the outside in for almost the entire time you've been there, that's the sense that I get about you.
Yeah, I enjoy the day-to-day activity with the players. I do. I like that a lot. I think that's the fun. I enjoy the training more than the games actually because I love the preparation. I love the development piece. I love the practicing and the repetition of it. That's that's a lot of fun. And the competition that I like too, but I like that 2-hour period where you can get on the field and try to create an energy that is different, and kids are feeding off it so they can get better. That kind of playground atmosphere that you're looking for. I enjoy that quite a bit. And then at the times that you play, that's certainly fun. I mean, win or lose, the competition is something that becomes part of what you do, and we certainly have enjoyed that too, and we've been fortunate to be successful at it. But it's not always successful all the time, and you got to fall back on something that you really enjoy. And the relationships and the training would be that.
I'm going into the mailbag for some questions from listeners, and our mailbag is sponsored by Vanderbilt fan and independent insurance agent Josh Minton of Brentwood. Are you in the market for auto, motorcycle, home, renters, or landlord insurance, or life or commercial insurance? You can call Josh at 615-933-1979. Email him at josh@hqinsurance.com. Follow him at facebook.com/JD Minton HQ. He's my insurance agent. Hope you'll make him yours. All right, you'll like this one. Stevie79 says, given how last year ended up, are you glad Vanderbilt didn't fire you after the Saturday Arkansas game or the Sunday Arkansas game?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess I was glad to get over that hurdle. Yeah, that was frustrating, that particular game, because you knew it was a good team that you were playing and had an opportunity to sweep them, and we fell a little bit short. But yeah, I'm glad I didn't get fired on that day.
I think a lot of people are. The People's Champion 13 says, when was the moment you knew that winning a national championship at Vanderbilt was possible?
I think in 11. I think when we had that team, I felt like we were capable of doing a lot of special things. We ran into Florida quite a few times that particular year, but I really thought that Florida and ourselves were the best teams in the country at the time. And that's not to say I knew what I was talking about, but I felt that way because I hadn't seen all the teams in the country. But I felt at that point that we were capable, and when you get there, you don't know if you'll ever get back to Omaha again. It really feels that way. But I felt like if we could, then we had an opportunity to get comfortable and play well.
I'm a little surprised that you didn't answer 2007 there.
Yeah, I just don't think we didn't have a roadmap of how to get there. I think after we lost, I felt like it was just so far away, Chris. I felt like, okay, this is the best we'll ever be. And I remember John Winkin, the main coach, telling me, he said, Tim, you'll get there again. And he did. Right after the tournament was over, he goes, I knew you weren't going to win that tournament. And it was, when he said that, it almost crushed me. But he said it because he just said that being an older coach that he was in his mid-80s at the University of Maine, he just understood that you need to get there a couple of times and feel it and know how to appreciate it in order to get through it. And he was certainly right, because that we didn't know where we were. We didn't know who we were. We knew we were good, but we just weren't prepared enough to get through that particular tournament, being that we were hosting for the first time. So it was just an experience that kind of hardened us moving forward.
You carried that one around for a while, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, I think you do. You carried 2007 around, carried 2013 around, and to be honest with you, we carried 2018 around, too, because those are just, we've had a lot of tough losses. But you know what, if you, it's like Bud Grant. He never won a Super Bowl, but he got to the Super Bowl 4 times. And my wife, she was telling me about a tennis analogy, too, that was very similar to that. Someone who gets to the final all the time. That's what it felt like. It felt like we were getting the final games. We just couldn't finish it up. And it's just so difficult to do. It is. It's it's not one of those things where you're choking. It's not like that. It's just that you come up short. Someone has to give. And those were tough to get through. They were really tough to get through, because 13, I thought we had a super team. That was one of the best we've ever had. And of course, because you felt like, okay, you wonder if you'll ever be able to pull it off.
This is a really good follow-up question from that. This is from KY Door. After winning your first championship, you entered the following season with the benefit of that season in hindsight. What wisdom did you gather following the second championship that you had not gotten from the first, and how that might enhance the team's chances to go back-to-back?
Yeah, I just think that every time you go, you learn preparation pieces. I think it's more mental than anything else, not physical. I think the physical part is just making sure that you can get the kids off their feet enough so that they can prepare well for the tournament itself. But it's the mental piece more than anything. I just learned how to connect the dots a little bit easier the second and third time around. And, I felt like going into this particular tournament, I felt like we were pretty prepared. I felt like the kids had a good time, and I think that's really what it is. You just don't want your kids squeezing it too hard once they get there. As I've told them, there's a time to be a tourist, and that's the first day and a half or 2 days that you get there. So we always go to the ballpark once we get to Omaha and kind of see it, and then the second day you spend a lot of time at the ballpark, and your third day when you're there in Omaha, then you become a participant. But I think you really want your kids to be able to take it in the first couple of days, and then once you start participating, getting them in the mode of competition. But I thought we handled that piece well, and I think it's just the fact that personally I've been there, Brownie's been there, Macias has been there. It's good when you start recovering people that have been there before, that know how to help navigate the waters as you get into Omaha and control the periphery of what's happening around you and just keep it simple to baseball.
You mentioned squeezing it too hard. I know in '07 you talked about not having been there. I think that team felt the burden of expectations. I watched you guys last year, and look, you're in the dugout, you're on top of it, and I'm not. Even when you guys struggled, I never got the sense that that was the case. Sometimes the other guy is just better on certain days, and especially when it's a pitcher on the hill who's got good stuff. Is that the way that you felt about it while you were going through it last year?
Yeah, and it has a lot to do with older kids. It's just older kids. Even the younger kids were older, and I say that like a Phil Clark. Now, he was a draft-eligible sophomore, so he is a little bit older. I mean, he was a junior in terms of age. Pat DeMarco, junior in terms of age. So you just had older kids, and then the younger kids, like an Austin Martin, he acts older. And when he gets in the middle of competition, he's unfazed by what's going on around him. So I think when you have that many kids that are unfazed about what they're doing and how they're doing it, they're very responsive to a loss, or they're very responsive to a shortcoming. And that is really where I felt like we separated ourselves from, past teams. You just had a nucleus of kids, a tremendous amount of kids. And when you don't have that, you feel it. Because there's a wonderment about your team going, okay, I wonder if we'll bounce back. These guys never wondered about that. They were pretty confident. They weren't overconfident, but they were confident enough to understand that, okay, we'll get through this, and we are pretty good. We do recognize that, but at the same time, they stand on they never, on the road to wherever they were going, they never veered off, and that's to their credit.
How meaningful was it that the Arretts were able to stand with you on that field and hold that trophy when it was over?
It's meaningful to watch. It's just meaningful to watch the players in those situations right there. I mean, that's the part. I mean, if you could just step back and watch it, that's all I really care about. And, I'd use the same comparison to Christmas, but that's what it feels like. It just feels like one of those moments where you just want to sit back and just watch it all unfold a little bit and watch them enjoy it, because that's who it's for. They did it. It should be their celebration. It should be their party. But, I get as much pure enjoyment of watching that and riding the bus back to the hotel. And then late that night, too, a bunch of them came up in our room. And, when you get moments like that, you never forget them. They're indelible in your mind.
Universe says, what's the most challenging aspect of your job?
I think the academic piece. I just think trying to carve out enough time to do the things you need to do to get better. Time is certainly an issue, and it's a pull. It's a pull on the players. I think that's the most difficult part, is navigating Vanderbilt's academic strengths, which is why the kids are there to begin with what we want to accomplish in the ball field. And I just think it's the time, it's the pull of time from the kids and what we want to accomplish, and that's the most difficult part.
Steve E79 says, how do you manage the 11.7 scholarships across the roster?
Tough. We split it up a great number of ways, and we do have financial aid, although financial aid does not give us the ability to get full rides. And I think the thing that Maggie and I joke about it all the time because it becomes so comical in terms of, well, Vanderbilt has 35 full rides. If anyone ever knew how much each kid on that field last year was paying to go to school, they would never say that again. Now, our financial aid allows us to help kids, but without that help, then we're not a player. We're not even close to a player. But when you've got guys paying 15, 17, 25, 30, $35,000, which I'm naming amounts of kids that were on the field last year, that's more. That's twice as more of any school in our conference, and it becomes very difficult. So you have to pick kids that are able to do it, and the financial piece of kids going to Vanderbilt to play baseball becomes very difficult no matter what anyone says.
Well, and you have kids too sometimes that come from wealthier families. Obviously, those people are not going to get aid. Sometimes those people can afford to maybe pay full fare or close to it. How do you handle that conversation? If it ever happens, when a parent or someone comes to you and says, "Hey, we can afford this. You may need more dollars elsewhere to recruit with." Does that conversation ever happen? And if it does, how do you work through that?
Yeah, it's very fluid. I mean, we have conversations every year because we've got a salary cap. And in order to do that, you don't know what's coming in and you don't know what's going out. I mean, we have I guess, a guesstimate of what we think could be leaving this next year and what we think could be coming in, but it never works out in the way that you want it to. So, yeah, we have real conversations all the time. It's very fluid. We talk to families about, okay, can we give you more this year and get more back next year? And then you have families who go, listen, we want to give you 10 back. We don't need it. And 10,000 or 5,000 or whatever, we don't need it. Give it to someone who does. I mean, those are real conversations too. But at the same time, we want to honor all of our kids. Whether it's financial aid or a baseball scholarship, it really doesn't matter to us. We just want to try to get the best package that we can. And we're very fortunate at Vanderbilt University where we have that opportunity. Every student has that opportunity from a financial aid standpoint. But it's not always easy to get. But we do have those real conversations from a scholarship standpoint.
Theodore 8 asks, it feels like Kumar Rocker is the face not just of Vanderbilt baseball, but of college baseball in general. Have you given any advice to Kumar about to handle all the attention he has earned, and how do you keep all the noise from the outside from making its way inside the locker room and affecting what the players think of themselves?
Yeah, we have quite a few conversations about that, and Kumar is certainly he is a very fun-loving kid, but at the same time, I would say he's on the mature side in terms of handling those situations right there. And we certainly have had conversations, but I think he's also gifted with his family at home. I think Dad certainly has been in the college athletic field for a long period of time as a player, as a coach, was certainly celebrated athlete himself when he won the Outland Trophy at Auburn. And Lou, his mom, is very bright, very smart, and another reason why he ended up going to school. But I think because of that, he understands some of the things himself. He's not that kid. He certainly has confidence in himself, but when it comes to the public, there's not a lot of places that he can go where he can just blend in. I mean, he's a big kid. He's an African-American kid. He looks like he's a tight end on a football field. He's got that smile that everyone can relate to. He's got a name that sticks out. He's got ability that sticks out. There's just not a lot of places he can go where, he's just going to just be able to do his thing. So you look at that, you start understanding his life is not always easy. It's not easy for him just to go to the store and go to Whole Foods and pick up things without someone coming up to him, which is fine. I mean, he's got a lot of patience and he cares about other people, but at the same time, he does want to blend in, and he just wants to be just a regular Vanderbilt student athlete. But I think the way he's handling it now is fine. We'll just kind of cross every day off as we go forward. But he does understand there's some responsibility doing the things that he's done in college baseball, not only at Vanderbilt.
Speaking to that, social media was not a thing when you started at Vanderbilt. It is very much a thing now. You know as well as I do, these are kids that have insecurities. As successful as they are, there's always something, or not always, but a lot of times something going on off the field, and doubts and issues these kids have too. Just with the whirlwind of social media and the microscope that your kids are under, do you have any policies about Twitter or social media? And if not, how do you talk to your kids about using those things?
Well, I don't have any policies per se. I think the one thing that we talk about is that when you do put something out there publicly, you're doing it for us. So if I was going to put anything out there, that would be for Kumar Rocker, that would be for Scott Brown, that would be for David Macias. That's for Vanderbilt baseball. So we just want to be careful and responsible of how we communicate throughout, knowing that we're representing everyone inside of our small little business or organization or program, and we just want to be aware of that. I think treating our kids as responsible adults has been the thing that we try to do the most. I just want them to make the decisions and choices that benefit them. So for 20 years from now, they're not embarrassed of a decision and choice that they made. And we talk about that every single day. Our approach might be different, but we're trying to do the same things. And when you're a pitcher and you're trying to command your fastball and breaking ball and change up, essentially as a student athlete, you're trying to command every piece of your life, whether it's social, academic, or athletic. And it's not easy to do. We're just kind of training wheels for them so we can guide them to go in the right direction. But at the same time, we want them to be responsible for making those decisions. And I think they do a good job, but we talk about that aspect quite a bit.
Tim, I want to talk about next year's team for a few minutes. Vandy Jr. asked a number of questions. I'm going to condense them basically to this. Give us a general rundown of your team next year, what that might look like as they line up on the field, and any thoughts that might be insightful into what we'll see starting February.
Okay, bear with me a little bit, Chris, because we're going through the North Carolina mountains here, so I may lose you, but if I do,
Sure.
I'll get right back with you. But I think from where we are right now, we didn't have a lot of older kids playing this fall, and it was because of injuries or operations. Austin Martin didn't play, Tyler Duvall didn't play, Isaiah Thomas didn't play, Jason Gonzalez didn't play much. Let's see who else I'm missing. Someone else. So, Cooper Davis. Cooper Davis had in-hand surgery too. So, in saying that, we put a lot of young kids on the field. So we were very inexperienced, which I thought was good because when we played Oklahoma State, when we played Michigan, a lot of our younger kids who may not get opportunities in the spring got an opportunity to play. In saying that, I think Tyler Duvall is one of those kids that, from a catcher standpoint, I think he has an opportunity to command that position. I'd say first base is very much open right now, as is the second and short position. Dominic Keegan has gone back and forth from catcher to first base. Boy, Spencer's a freshman, and Henry is a returning sophomore. We had Harrison Ray and Carter Young playing second and short, along with a few other kids. And then Jason Gonzalez was playing a little bit of third when he was healthy, but we also had Parker Noland, who was a freshman, playing some third base as well. Will Duff was a freshman who was playing some second, some short, some center field. And then in the outfield, it was just a mix of not many people, really, just because Had a lot of outfielders out with Cooper and Isaiah, so it just became infielders that we were pushing out into the outfield. So I would say from knowing who's going to do what, this is probably one of those years where there's a lot of question marks. We have some thoughts, but I really couldn't tell you right now where Austin Martin is going to play, whether we position him in the outfield or position him at third base, where Harrison Ray is going to end up. I know Cooper Davis and Isaiah Thomas are outfielders by nature, so they would do that. But outside of that, I think there's a lot of question marks.
Do you have an idea of how you would like to line up your pitching?
Not so much. I think there's 5 or 6 guys that, and even 7, there's some guys that have been trained as potential starters that might be there. But I think when you look at just the group of them, Hickman, Kumar, I get Hickman, Kumar, and then Jake Eater, and then Ryder. Those are 4 guys offhand that we started a lot. Mikey Doolan is another kid who pitched well at the end. Sam Lavoki pitched well towards the end. Those guys certainly have starter abilities. Chance Huff is a kid who started pitching very well towards the end. He's got starter abilities too. Tyler Brown can do a lot of different things, but I think it's just going to be the kids that we feel that can handle the durability of being a starter, and then the guys who are a better fit coming in towards the middle part of the game and even at the end. Tyler did such a good job in that space, and when you look at guys like him, Chris, they're like field goal kickers. They're the Adam Vinatieri's of the world, that they become so dependent because of the position that they're in, and they get so used to being in those moments of 7th, 8th, and 9th inning with a one-run game or guys in scoring position that it's really hard to move them. But in saying that, we'll just have to see how it develops.
So I guess what I hear you saying is you're going to be hard-pressed to move Tyler out of that closer's role.
I think right now, unless we see someone who can come in and take his spot, but really, you don't know that until you're playing the opposition. I mean, it's one thing to close games in a scrimmage. It's another thing to close games against competition on a Friday or Saturday or Sunday. Those are completely different. We all know that. So, but I'd say right now, he certainly is our most experienced guy doing that.
You're almost in a can't-lose spot with however you use him, it seems to me.
Well, you're right, he's very versatile, and he's got what makes him different is his mind. You're talking about a kid who has been through a lot personally, is a high school wrestler, and you would say to yourself, this guy's got a chance to be overly aggressive in that role, and the containment of adrenaline and the containment of his mind is one of the biggest factors of his success. It's just his command of his mental approach to pitching. There's not too many ups and downs with that kid. He stays very even, and that's a great compliment to that kid.
When you get your 3 for the weekend, how much does it really matter what order you put them in?
To me, it doesn't, Chris. I mean, I think sometimes it matters to the kids, but when you explain it to them in a way of, hey guys, listen, someone's going to pitch Friday, someone's going to pitch Saturday, someone's going to pitch Sunday. Forget what it appears to be. The bottom line is we want to win a series, and we just got to put those pitchers in an order where we feel like it gives Vanderbilt the better chance to do that. If we can do that, fine. I think the one thing that we'd like to do is just get consistency with it. The better off you are in terms of keeping guys in their role and keeping guys in routine, and I think that's important it's important for anyone, but certainly important for a college kid.
Dorfan wants to know what position player as a freshman looks the most ready to start.
Oh, that's a tough one. I think the kid that we found to be ahead would probably be a guy like Spencer Jones. Now, I don't know if he starts or not, but He's big, tall, left-handed hitter who's very athletic. He moves especially well. He played a very good first base. He runs. He can hit. He can hit with a little bit of power. I thought, in terms of freshmen that came in and showed the ability to hit and the ability to hit good pitching, I thought he was the one that probably progressed the most. But that's not to say that someone like Parker Noland or Will Duff or Carter Young doesn't fit in that role. I thought Carter Young showed the most defensive abilities of anyone in terms of hands and exchange. You're going to enjoy watching him play middle infield, whether it's shortstop or second base. He can play defense, and people are going to notice that right away. But I would say probably Carter Young and Spencer Jones were the two offhand that I felt like had the ability to get on the field.
Of your returnees, who's made the biggest leap?
I'd say Matt Hogan. There's a lot of them that improved, but I like what Matt Hogan has done. I felt like he was a long way off at this point last year, but in terms of his defense, certainly very improved. He can go get a baseball with anyone on our team. Gets the best jumps. He's got great speed. His tools are very good. He's got strength in his hands. He can run. But I'd say just in terms of improvement, he really is improved. And I really think Chris going to the Northwoods League this summer and playing a bunch of games really helped Matt. But Matt's one of those kids. He's a willing learner, and his effort level and energy is there every single day. So you just know he's going to get better. But I really like the strides he made.
You talked about Austin Martin earlier and not being entirely sure of what you would do with him. Man, Austin is maybe the most unique player I've ever seen in college baseball. I'm trying to think of who I would compare him to, maybe it's Tony Phillips, but I don't even think that's a great comparison. It's just the closest I can think of. How unique is he, and where do you see him fitting in the bigs one day?
Yeah, he is unusual. You think about his freshman year and how he came to the ballpark every single day not knowing where he was going to play. And then when you position him at a position, you say, "Are you okay there?" And he goes, "I'm fine." He goes, "I just want to play." And we had him at every position, first, second. And every time you moved him into a position, whether it's first, second, short, third, you felt like he could play that position better than the one he just left. So he is unique. Where do I think he will be long term? I don't know. I could see him in center field because he tracks the ball so well. But I can see him. He likes the shortstop position, and you could certainly play him there and leave him there, and he'd be fine. His versatility is such where, from a defensive standpoint, all he does is compete against the ball. And case in point would be he knocked himself out chasing the ball in the sixth hole with our shortstop when we played over at the AAA stadium. And that's his sole goal is just to catch the ball himself. He wants to play. And I think when you get a kid like that who's so aggressive defensively, and then certainly aggressive offensively, but not overly aggressive, he, like Tyler Brown, commands his energies and adrenaline as well as anyone I've ever seen. And offensively, he's just a very consistent, good hitter. And if he doesn't hit, then he's going to. He's just one of those kids who really has a focus to play very good offensive baseball. But you talk about well-rounded, he's about as well-rounded as a baseball player, and that's really what he is. If you want to put a compliment on him, you'd say Austin Martin is a baseball player because that's exactly what he is. He plays the game to compete. He plays the game to beat you, and he keeps it very simple.
How thrilled were you that the draft was moved to Omaha? What will that do for both the college and the pro game?
I think it's great. I mean, I think number one, moving it to Omaha, where it has it gains some attention, where there's going to be a lot of people there. Omaha is going to certainly celebrate that situation more so than anyone. I can almost guarantee that. And I think the other thing, Chris, is you affect less teams now. There's still going to be some kids that going to the World Series could be affected a little bit. It's only normal. You have a lot of conversations when you get that close to the draft in terms of being, first, second, third rounder. But I've always thought the draft doesn't affect those kids. It affects the kids that are question marks, the kids that are wanting to be drafted, that are hanging on through the 15th, through the 16th, through day 2, through day 3, through day 4, based on what they've been told, or day 3, I should say. But I just like the fact that now that it's in Omaha, it's going to get celebrated more, but it also is going to affect less teams because during super regionals, it was very difficult to navigate and very tough on the kids. And no one liked that. So I think that was a tremendous move.
Raiders 1967 wants to know if you could make one change to the NCAA rules and regulations and restrictions for college baseball, what would that be?
Well, it's easy for me. I just think, number one, to help the kids is to make the volunteer assistant a full-time assistant. I think that's first and foremost, and I say that for a lot of different reasons. Number one, so that you'll have a full-time coach that can function in that manner, because the way that he functions right now is very difficult in so many different ways. But I also think that you got to open up a pipeline to channel other people to get into college baseball, because I think that's how we stimulate it and that's how we grow it at the minority level. And I say minority, all minorities, because I think our college game is very white. And I think if we have the opportunity to broaden the coaching pool, then you're going to end up with younger kids that are going to see people like themselves that are going to hang on to baseball longer. And I think a lot of young kids may start playing baseball at a young age, but because they don't see any road moving forward, they drop it. They drop it at age 12 or 13. And I think to get more people in it at the teaching level will allow more people at the base level to stay in it and see it as a career. And if that happens, then eventually we can grow the scholarship pool. If we grow the scholarship pool, then we most certainly can cater to more kids. And right now we can only cater to a select few. It's kids who can afford to come, and it makes it very difficult.
Vandy Creed says, aside from Hawkins Field, what is your favorite SEC venue and your least favorite? And he says, if he were taking a road trip to watch your team, where would you say to go first?
Well, I think they're all unique and fun in their own way. I really like LSU as a fun atmosphere because the fans are very good baseball fans. They celebrate the game as a whole. That's a lot of fun. Arkansas is a lot of fun. I mean, it's a big deal there. Mississippi State, it's a lot of fun there. Ole Miss, those are 4 very good venues, and I would say that those are baseball fans. They can be tough at times, but at the same time, I think they celebrate very good baseball. Then University of South Carolina has a beautiful facility. That certainly is one that we enjoy going to. But I think they have each place has a uniqueness to it that's different than the other one, and it's just special to be in this conference and so celebrated. But I just say it's a trickle-down effect of college football to baseball, and that's what we have. Special.
Dulcie Orleans wants to know, who's your favorite coach to play against and why?
Well, I'm more partial probably to the older coaches. I mean, I Bianco and Van Horn are, older coaches. We've been in the league the same amount of time, so that's special. Sully, just because I coached with him at Clemson, and I love Rob Childress at Texas A&M. He's a good guy. I mean, they're all good in their own unique way. Tony's done such a good job at Tennessee, and I've gotten to know him better. He's such a hard worker, and he certainly elevated their program. So, it's easy to sit back and say you have respect for all of them. You do, because it's so competitive. But, I'm certainly fond of the older coaches that have been doing it a long time.
If I got a gun to your head, though, Florida's a little bit more special in its own way, isn't it?
Well, it is. I mean, he's always got such a good team, and he's got such a competitive way about him, and his kids compete well against Vanderbilt. We compete well against Florida. Yeah, it always makes for a very difficult and tough series. You're glad when it's over.
Have you ever thought you guys were going to have a brawl with them at some point?
No, I think it's like playing your brother. I mean, if you grow up with a brother, then you understand that it's like cat and mouse. You're going back and forth all the time, and I think you teeter on those aggressive moments, but at the same or emotional moments, I should say. But at the end of it, it's kind of like Louisville and Vanderbilt through the years. The reason you have those moments is just because you respect one another so much and you enjoy playing one another so much, and it has a tremendous amount of meaning. And because it has a lot of meaning, it kind of teeters on the emotional side. But it's not the worst thing. As long as everyone can contain their emotions, then it's all good.
Have you ever thought about making Louisville a weekend series?
I mean, it would be adding another SEC series to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's not to minimize the strength of anyone else that we're playing. But I think what our situation right now, and the fact that it's a barrel game and it has meaning for that one time, and then we, through the years we've typically run into each other at the end of the year. I think that's enough. I think we're in a good spot right now. At least that's my way of thinking. I don't know how Dan thinks about it, but I'm fine with just the one game.
I don't pass judgment on you for that, although it would be a lot of fun. And to that, Ann Arbor Door wants to know, is there any chance that you might play Michigan in Ann Arbor at some point? He says, I'd love to be able to walk to a game.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's a possibility. I think it would be a possibility, though, after exams, because we just couldn't get there, nor would we want to get to the North Pole in February and March. So if we're going to play Michigan, I'd rather do it in May. So if we could do it in May, that's a possibility. And I think we're going to think about this David Williams Classic again, too, just in terms of how we want to do it and where we want to do it, because that was a lot of fun, and I was happy for Gail and Samantha and Nick that they could be part of it. But Michigan and Vanderbilt have a fondness, obviously, towards one another, and we hope that there's a continuance of that for both teams.
Well, you've got Hawaii coming in. I think it's this year. Is there a return trip there?
There is. There is a return trip there, and we're just trying to balance it with other tournaments. We'd like to stay in that, although the Dodger Classic, we're not getting to go to Dodger Stadium this year because Los Angeles is renovating their stadium. So we're going, but we're not going to play at Dodger Stadium. And, we've been a part of MLB4, which we've really enjoyed. We're going to do that again, and Michigan's going to be a part of that. So, yeah, it's just balancing when to do it. But Brooks Webb and myself do the scheduling. Brooks has been very good about scheduling these tournaments, because the tournaments for our kids are very enjoyable to be a part of. And now with these two games, Chris, in the fall, that it gives us an opportunity to travel too. And the trip to Kansas City was a lot of fun, and it was a great learning experience too. So we want to be able to do that as well.
Is there anybody else coming on the schedule in future years that you can disclose?
Hawaii's the one. Future years, we're going to get UCLA back here. I think that's 22. I'm not looking at the calendar right now, but UCLA will be a participant here, and no one else that I think would be of mention right now that hasn't been here before.
Will UCLA be a weekend series, or will that be a weekday thing?
Weekend series.
Oh, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah, it'd be great.
A couple more, I'll get you out of here.
Yep.
Vandy always wants to know, do you ever talk to Pedro Alvarez, and what are his plans with baseball?
Yeah, I had dinner with him a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, he's still in town here. I think he's just trying to decide what he wants to do. He's got a foot injury that's kept him back a little bit. There's a big part of him that would like to continue to play, but I think he's kind of balancing that in his mind right now. He's got a family. They may have more children down the road here, so he and Kelly are just trying to balance what they want to do moving forward, but we're certainly glad he's in Nashville.
Rasthrand says, you have one scholarship left to offer and you need an outfielder. You've narrowed it to one of two choices. One is a gifted outfielder with a quick step, good glove, and strong arm, but is not a disciplined hitter. The other hits for power and average, but his fielding is suspect. Both are strong academically and play multiple sports. Which one do you offer?
I've always thought, Chris, that like the discipline at the plate, that the discipline at the plate and the hit, I have always felt like we can grow the player from a defensive standpoint. But someone who can hit, who has the hit tool and is disciplined at the plate, those are very, very difficult to find. If he's a multi-sport athlete, then I just think that there's going to be an early improvement as far as defense is concerned. So I would take the latter on that one. I take the second guy that you spoke about.
That surprises me. I thought you would probably answer defense first.
Well, as you know, we tell the boys, defense gets you on the field, offense keeps you on it. If the skill of offense is very, very difficult to find. So through the years, I felt like you gave me the whole of a multi-sport athlete. So once you told me that, I go, okay, he can learn how to play defense if he's played football, basketball, soccer, any of those sports. I feel like he can adjust to a defense. But being an offensive player, it's tough to make those adjustments in the SEC with the pitching that we're seeing.
Yeah, that is a great answer. I appreciate hearing your insight. Okay, this is really the last one I've got. Dorking says, any advice to a Little League coach? And he says he's coaching 7 to 9-year-olds. And are there any books that you would recommend?
Okay, so any advice to a coach of a 7, 8, and 9-year-old team?
Yes.
Well, I would think that the most important part would be just putting together very good practices in which there's a lot of repetition so that the kids at that age can grow. I think the more good experiences that they have in a practice situation without turning on the scoreboard is very favorable for a kid that is the sole purpose of that environment. It's certainly fun to play in those environments for those kids, but what ends up happening with a 7, 8, and 9-year-old when you turn the scoreboard on is older people get involved in the outcomes, and that's not what you want. When there's no outcomes, then it becomes more the focus and the onus becomes the kids themselves. And I just like the training environment. So if a coach can create that and put together a good training environment for a 7, 8, and 9-year-old team, then I think the more times, if you can practice more than you can play, I think you're serving the kid. And I think when it gets right down to it, more thought needs to go into serving the kid and not the adults, because that's really the focus. It's for these kids to have fun and to grow and to learn throughout with the foundation of baseball being the foundation.
Well, and I want to actually add one little step to that, too. I've got a 5.5-year-old who'll be 6 in February, loves baseball, plays, loves it, has me pitch to him inside in our bonus room with a little foam ball just about every day, and just has a passion for it, loves it as a game, does not get easily frustrated. We're starting to get asked to consider travel ball and stuff like that. I'm just going, man, we're at a point where he's having fun, and I don't want to ruin the game for him. And it just seems like they're making kids get too serious too young. What would your advice to be to me or somebody like me who's in that situation? How do you handle a younger kid, and you want him to develop and have that opportunity if that's what he wants, but you also worry about a kid getting burned out and taking it too seriously and it ruining the fun of him at an early age, which I also do not want.
Yep. You're talking to a college baseball coach, so my mindset, most people would probably think that he's going to want his child to travel, which would be the opposite, really. All I would care about for my kid at that age, while he's 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, is to play as many sports as he possibly can. Because I think what he's going to do, he's going to whittle those down in time and kind of move towards 1 or 2 or 3 of them. And what happens with travel ball is it kind of saddles you up to do just. I would be very seasonal in my approach with my child if we had a child. I thought the way Maggie handled Molly and Hannah in terms of opening up the door to many sports, and then they just kind of moved in the direction that they wanted to go when they were 14 and 15 or 16. It's not going to hinder the kid. It's allowing them to play other sports, allows them to reset their brain, and allows them to continue to have fun. So I'm of the opinion just to open everything up to your kids, to let them play everything they possibly can.
So ideal age to start travel ball, I guess, is early teens if you had to pick a time?
That would be for me. I mean, I think after Little League, I think that's the time that I would do it. I just think the seriousness of it at that age, Little League is, I love the Little League environment. I love the fact that the kids play to compete. I think that's a healthy thing, but travel ball, playing 40 and 50 games when you're 8, 9 years old, no, I'm not a big proponent of it. I'm not. I think there's other things that you can do to help a young man grow, and that's not one of them.
Tim, I want to close with the comment that a listener asked me to pass along, and after I share that with you, I would like for you to have the floor to give out information about the banquet and season tickets and whatever you would like to promote. But this is from Bear 8000. He says, about 15 years ago, when you were being courted by another Southeastern Conference program, I wrote you a letter thanking you for staying at Vanderbilt. You didn't know me and we'd never met. I still have the handwritten note that you sent me 2 weeks later. That says a lot about your character. No question here. I just wanted to let you know how much that meant to me. We, and he speaks for the fan base, are all very fortunate in you representing Vanderbilt for so many years, and thank you.
Well, I really appreciate that because I certainly feel the same way. I mean, it's a luxury that Maggie and I have been able to stay in Nashville, as you know, because you've been in sports for a long period of time covering it. It's very difficult to stay in one spot for 5, 6, 7 years, let alone 18. So we don't take any of this for granted. And through our Vanderbilt connection and through coaching here, we've been able to blend inside the community too, and we've developed a lot of great acquaintances and friends. So much like that compliment there, I mean, it's we feel the same way. We feel very lucky that we've had this opportunity for as long as we have, and we hope that we'll be able to sustain it and continue it, and understanding that we're just renting it. We don't own anything, and we don't take that part for granted. So we'll continue to try to represent the university in the best way we can through baseball, try to put good product on the field, one that everyone can be very proud of, and we're certainly looking forward to 2020 and starting the next decade off with Vanderbilt baseball in a good way.
Tim, I wanted to give you a minute to promote the banquet and also to talk about season tickets, any ways that people out there who are listening can help the program and get more involved.
Well, season tickets are certainly out there. I just wrote a season ticket letter the other day to all the season ticket holders and thanked them for re-signing up again to attend and buying season tickets. The banquet is the last weekend in January, first weekend of February. It's Super Bowl Saturday, and we do that at the Omni, and that certainly is a special thing because that's grown through the years. We get almost 1,000 people, but it's a good way to honor last year's team and show you the new team and introduce you to all the new kids. And I like to talk about them. I spend a minute or two on each kid, and the Omni does such a great job of hosting that for us. So that's a lot of fun, but I don't have my calendar in front of me, but it's that Super Bowl weekend. It's that Saturday at the Omni. starts at 6:30, and you certainly can sign up for tickets on through our website.
Tim, don't go anywhere. I want to talk to you off air for a second, but thank you so much for joining us today.
I always appreciate you, Chris. Thank you.
We appreciate you as well on this podcast and for doing that with us. He is Tim Corbin. He is the head coach of Vanderbilt baseball. I am Chris Lee, the host of the VandySports podcast. We will have a couple more episodes coming later this week.